Welcome to Command Control Power, a weekly podcast hosted by 3 certified members of the Apple Consultants Network, drawing from over half a century of combined experience. We talk shop, interview vendors and colleagues, and share what we've learned while operating our technology consulting practices. This is Joe Saponari of CyMac, and my 2 co-hosts are Jerry Zigman of MacWorks and Sam Valencia of the HCS Technology Group. Command Control Power is brought to you commercial-free thanks to the support of our community. Our VIP supporters include Jason Detbarn of Adigi.com, John Brown of GroveTech.co, Watchman Monitoring, and Adam Angst of Tidbits Content Network. Thanks very much for supporting the show. Welcome to Command Control Power, Dav James, new guest, IT consultant and owner of DIJ Consulting, DIJconsulting.com. Thanks for joining us, Dav.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me on. This is great.
Awesome. And I understand you're up in Canada, up north from here. So Calgary, is that right?
Yeah, from Calgary, Alberta, in Western Canada, near the Rockies.
Nice.
Above
awesome.
the 49th parallel, Joe.
I see. Got it.
Feels like that.
Yeah, I'm south of there, also along the Rockies.
Everybody is south from there.
Yes, that's true. I'm basically due south, I think, more or less. So, Dav, I think this came to be someone on the Mac Admin Slack suggested that we invite you on to discuss what I'm calling broadly automation. I've been really getting more involved in that, specifically leveraging Adigi for a lot of just what we need to do as far as like managing and maintaining our client base overall. Mm-hmm. And so you mentioned, I think, Repair Shopper at one point, which is not something that a lot of people use. I don't think a lot of our colleagues use Repair Shopper, but I do. And so, I just wanted to, I guess that'll be like the direction we head. But to start with, like, when did you get into Apple consulting and where did you get your start?
Yeah, I think like a lot of people have worked for Apple at some point in the past, and I did the whole creative route and then genius route, and that's that realm. And then I decided to go into corporate IT, and so I worked in oil and gas, which is popular here, working at PC support, and then worked for a startup that does corporate giving called Affordability, and eventually they use only Apple in there, and so that's where I really got into the sort of the MDM world, and we used Jamf Pro there at the time, and yeah, I just led my way to working with other ACNs that were local at times to get some help, and eventually joined one of our local ACNs, Ripita, and do some work with them. And just as of recent, I focused on a lot of automation and integration of software, including Repair Shopper, and really centralized things around Monday.com, which I think at some point you had an episode a few months ago where you were testing the waters with that. And that's kind of what led me to jump on in the Mac Admins channel to mention that. So yeah, because I think for small and medium ACNs, sometimes it can be hard to provide the data the clients want to get, and internally all the stuff from the different avenues, things like Repair Shopper and maybe some visibility on company numbers, ticketing system, and those kind of things. And so we centralize all that into Monday.com.
Nice. Yeah, I know Sam's going to have probably a lot of things to say about Monday.com because, Sam, you've been really diving into that ever since that episode, I get the impression, right?
It's become a big part of what we're doing now that we've given it a chance, and it's changed the landscape of how we work for sure.
Does that integrate for you, Sam? Do you use Monday.com, and do you like create data in there, so to speak, like you create your different client notes and things like that in Monday.com from scratch, or does it integrate with your existing Zendesk ticketing system or whatever else and have that kind of like two-way syncing going on?
I think this is where, so yes, it can. We don't use it in that capacity yet, but this is where Dav could shine with this part of the discussion. But it does have some functionality to integrate with things like Zendesk for the automation and creation of tickets. I just haven't found in the way that I'm using it yet that it would work for me to generate tickets.
Just to jump on that quickly, there are some certain apps like Zendesk that do have direct integration, so you do get this two-way communication. We've been using Zendesk for a while, and it's great to have. So we use it in the capacity of when a ticket gets updated and those things, it just automatically updates the item in Monday. And what that does for us is then we can have the dashboards that we want to have and present the client with kind of a holistic picture, hopefully, of things like, hey, this month, this is the amount of requests that your users sent to us, like tickets, and then here's how much machines have failed and we've had to replace and so forth. Like just some like different numbers and what you're paying for your subscription, if that's how that model that you use for your ACN. So we can provide that to our client with a client-facing sort of dashboard that kind of encompasses all of that. So that's where we use that tie into Zendesk and ticketing from our standpoint. I'm sure there are other ways of using it that's probably really useful as well. But
that actually is interesting to me because just thinking about what I was concerned about is having Monday.com become too overpopulated with data where it just became a mess of stuff and then we wouldn't want to use it as much. So I've been keeping it a little bit more lean and mean. I find that Zendesk is great, but it's some of the functionality and reporting features for the customer facing end aren't great. So if there's a way we can bring that or suck that information into Monday and have some sort of customer facing window into their ticket usage or failures or anything like that, that actually is very interesting to me.
It sounds to me like a lot of things that are more consultant facing, the end facing, than client facing. Is that kind of the direction you're headed?
Yeah, I think it's been instrumental in giving us the visibility on all the different tools. That we use Watchman monitoring, for example, for devices. And we've gone through a bunch of MDMs, but most recently we're on simple MDM for a lot of our clients. And it's not so much that it has an integration directly into everything, but I think if you're not so scripting heavy in terms of you're comfortable in making integrations manually, then the integration with Zapier is really good in the first place, which then leads itself to being able to integrate with a lot of other stuff quite efficiently. And
it's a conduit, right? As long as like Zendesk talks to Zapier and Monday.com talks to Zapier, then they can talk to each other essentially.
Yeah. And I think like I've tried some other integration tools other than Zapier, and I just found that the time that they've spent between Zapier and Monday has made it quite useful. And that's where like Repair Shopper, for example, is useful to get the data into Monday is through Zapier. Just because I found that trying to get an integration going with Repair Shopper was a bit challenging at times, and their own integrations aren't exactly the most robust at all times.
I can definitely, yeah, for sure. They'll advertise integration, but then when you put it in practice, that's all it does. It's just, and yeah, I could see having something in between being a lot more useful or necessary.
Best effort, for sure.
Yeah, that's totally, minimally viable in a lot of ways with them. Yeah, it's frustrating, but I needed some kind of solution that did ticketing and some light CRM and invoicing and stuff like that. And that's, Repair Shopper does it all, and it's pretty inexpensive for what it does.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely has its limitations. But I love the concept. Certainly, I'm a sucker for a great dashboard in general. And Repair Shopper has some kind of concept of a dashboard, but I don't know anybody that would actually use it. And so what I find myself doing, I actually use the Numbers app. I have this kind of master spreadsheet in Numbers that has some pretty layouts and things and automatic highlighting and different features that make it pretty nice to look at, but it's all pretty manual for me to get data into it. I just need to export a report from Repair Shopper and then either copy and paste or that kind of thing, or just literally like type in the new number. So I have to manually update it on a regular basis. I can't just have like live data. Something that could give me this similar features, but with live data would save me time and be more useful to know in the moment that tickets are up or here's my current monthly recurring revenue, just numbers that are nice to look at like that. That sounds promising to be able to go from even something as, we like to use the word janky, something as janky as Repair Shopper to into a Monday.com through Zapier. Sounds pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think for something like Zapier, it has a lot of tools built in, but it's not necessarily intuitive in terms of getting everything to work and successfully. For us, what is provided, though, we do our repairs through Repair Shopper because it does have the parts, for example. Right. Now, we don't have it synced to GSX, but we do still have all our parts in there, and we can go quickly in there, and we have every so often we update based on what Apple brings out. So we use like a ticketing system like Zendesk for our tickets, for managed services for our clients. But then for repairs, because we have other repair clients that are not managed services, let's say different school districts and those kind of things. And as they submit these repairs, or even if they are a managed services client, it all comes to the same place. And it was just hard to keep the visibility if you were, let's say, hopping between like, what was our repairs at? And you got to pull a report to do it. You're always reacting to it instead of being notified on something or visually or so in some other way. And that's where like having that integration was just useful to just have a real time so we can jump on things ahead of time and say, hey, you know what, this bill is going up. We're going to have to contact the client and say, hey, looks like our support hours are skyrocketing right now. Let's, do we need to address this in a different way and so forth. And then same with repairs, depending on the clients and how we had it organized. So that's where like finding something centralized. I found that there's lots of tools that do one thing really well, but to bring it centralized has been a challenge, especially for these sort of smaller and medium-sized businesses. You can get things, there's loads of ticketing, even Zendesk. There's another one I was thinking of that I can't remember. Oh, ServiceNow, and things. You can get it to do whatever you want, but you got to invest. Like, it's a pretty heavy investment in terms of finances. So
do you mean to actually pay for the software, or to pay someone for integration, or all of the above?
I think all of the above, like licensing for, if you get ServiceNow to do exactly what you want, not only in licensing, but also you're probably going to need some development done if you want to get it to work the way you want. Their initial package is really good. Their like small business package that they had was really good, but it was still pretty expensive. And so I think that's where the need came to have something that's affordable, can do a lot of what you need it to do. It takes some configuring, but because it's laid out in layman's terms in a lot of ways, because you're not scripting stuff manually or coding, then something like Monday just became really useful for that. And I think you do have to go down the route of using other tools to integrate sometimes, but for the most part, it's been great. Even through like API calls and things like that, through Zapier, you can get all this stuff in there. So like, for example, with Watchman monitoring, if there's a new device or if there's anything wrong with devices, that also goes to our Monday board. And so we start managing internally as an ACN, just a lot of the work in there without having to go to different systems and check on them. That's where it ties into the point about Repair Shopper, is we don't need to go into Repair Shopper to know that a new request for repair has come in particularly, or if a new invoice is made and so forth. So
that's really interesting.
Yeah, I like that aspect of it, because that's one of the challenges in our field, is just so many different tools and pieces to use for one thing, whether it's ticketing or malware checks or hardware checks. It's like you've got to log into 10 different portals. So I know I'm not using Monday to its full capacity. So I know that some of this I should start to integrate, especially starting with the Zendesk piece, as long as I can keep it clean as an interface so the technicians going in there aren't overwhelmed with the data that they're seeing. And I assume maybe that's with the use of the workspaces there and using them well.
The full structure of breakdown has been decent in terms of being able to have a workspace and then folders, and then you have different boards and folders. And if you haven't used Monday.com at all, it's essentially a work or a task management software. It's like having an Excel sheet, but with really dynamic columns that's pre-built, and you can build a lot of automation around that. So essentially it's organized into boards, which are the same as like Excel sheets or just databases. And having that ability to break down allows you to keep it pretty clean. And if you can also do things like, if clients have their own instance and those kind of things, it's very easy to transfer things from one instance to another instance as an entirety. And it's really powerful for that. That was the kind of thing that stood out to me on the back end, is the ease of like transfer of data and keeping that pretty clean. So I would second.
So you could like integrate your systems with Monday.com for your own sort of dashboard and stats and things like that. And then you could reshare that data that you've now got coming into your Monday.com. Can you like share that live data also with a client then? And
yeah, there's different ways to go about it, but yeah, you can make dashboards viewable only for clients. We used to in the past have a dashboard and it would like refresh every so often. You can either have live data, so like it gets updated automatically through a dashboard for the client, or you can have it more static and then you just get it to refresh every 5 minutes or so. So that's one of the ways you can do it. And then they don't have to have an account in your instance, and they don't have to have access to the data, and you can manage the permissions pretty decently well. And the ability to have viewers of data without having to pay for a license for it is nice when you have those clients, because then you're not worried of your license count going up for the sake of showing the right data. So
that was my very next question, actually. So you answered it before I got to it. Yeah, I wanted to know that because they sell them I think they sell the licenses in 5 packs or something. So up to 5 users is $50 a month or something. And then they go up from there. I'm looking at one of my dashboards right now because we have customers with different MDMs. We wanted to just have a centralized place for all the token renewals so we didn't miss them for push certificates and volume purchasing and everything. So I have a whole dashboard set up, and we have each tech is assigned a specific customer, and so they'll get an alert that says, hey, it's coming close to the renewal date for this client's tokens. Please take care of it. And that piece of it has been truly life-changing for us, because I was always struggling to find a centralized location for just like reminders and alerts for the team, something simple like that. And this is great. For the token renewals alone, I was paying this money just because it changed how we...
In all honesty, Sam, you get daylight
for free, and Daylight could have easily done that for you and put the calendar invite or the calendar reminder automatically on there with an integrated.
Is this a Daylight?
Just say
.com moment?
Yeah.
DaylightMac.com.
But no, Dav, I want to just chime in here for a moment and just say that for folks listening, I'm in my business, it's pretty much me. And so I did take a look at Monday for a short while. I did a little trial. Sam had mentioned it. And I think that the thing that we need to put out there is that with any of these systems that we're talking about or that we're hearing, you really have to roll up your sleeves and dive in. And if you're trying to keep all the balls in the air, it can potentially be challenging for you to integrate and figure out how a Zapier script and then how to get it. Oh, that isn't right. And you could spend the whole day just screwing around. So I wanted to know, in terms of perspective of your business, is it just yourself that's working on some of these integrations, or do you have a team of people working with you?
It's a team of me, myself, and I. Absolutely. It's just me.
Okay. No, that's even more impressive than saying you had a team, because the fact that you're able to take the bull by the horns and make a lot of this stuff work, that speaks very highly of your talent and your technique. Again, there's people out there to help in the community, but it does take effort.
Yeah, I think you do touch on something that, like, Monday. So I've tried other management software. For those of you out there have tried things like Asana or Trello, it comes from the same roots in terms of like task management and the idea of what you would use software like that for. However, Monday have expanded onto lots of different teams. And the thing is, you can do so much with it that I think you're right that it does you can spend all day in there. You can spend quite a bit of time and maybe not have the result that you want, on top of having to maybe sometimes have to go outside of the software to get it to work the way you want, to your point about using Zapier. Yeah. And I think where it does a really good job is in terms of like when you're building things like automation, it's very human in its formulas that you express your automation wants. Hey, trigger this status change, I want this to happen, but it's pretty much laid out like that. And I think that's where it's quick to get to the basics. But when you want to do exactly what you want, I think you do inevitably have to spend more time than you would, because it is not solely focused on being like, let's say, an ITSM piece of software or like a service desk piece of software or whatever that might be. I think you're right. You do need to shape it the way you want and spend the time to shape it the way you want.
And it's not prohibitively expensive, but then at the same time, you and I put on our pants the same way, being armies of one. You're paying for this thing and you want to make it work, and all the pressure is on you to make it happen. So it's a Herculean effort sometimes.
But you're right, there are people who are out there to help. I think like a lot of companies, Monday they do the thing where they focus on enterprise internally. And then they outsource all the small and medium business stuff to contractors, right? Myself included. And I think there are people out there to help. There's also a pretty decent community. They just launched like a new support website, like a community support website. And it's been pretty good. They have pretty good people actually managing that as well. So there's getting information out there. I wouldn't say it's like hugely, like there's not that many people providing, let's say, videos. It's not that simple. You'll find something that quickly, but it's getting there. It's getting there from a support community standpoint, for sure.
Nice. It sounds like any automation question, there's that curve you have to consider. If the return on putting in the time is not that much of a time savings, then it doesn't make sense to spend a lot of time automating and set that upfront cost of time investment. I'm also curious, what's the long-term like maintenance? Do you have to go in and fix the connection between, in my case, Repair Shopper and Zapier, or Zapier and Monday, or go in and say, oh, it looks like they changed the format here slightly, so I need to like reprogram this script that interprets between the two? And like, how much of that ongoing stuff is necessary?
Yeah, like the maintenance and that's a great question. I was worried about the same thing when I started Monday, using Monday. I'm like, okay, it's integration, but how many times am I going to have to, like, to your point, like just reconnect everything every other month as soon as there's an update somewhere? But it's been really solid from my experience. To give you an example, when a Zendesk we haven't updated in the last year and a half in any connections, and we have it connected to multiple boards. I'm trying to think of other examples that we have. Slack is also, obviously Slack is really solid though, in general with integrations. And those actually, so is Zendesk. So I guess from the Monday side, I haven't had to reconnect very much stuff. I have found it to be really good with that. I think where it fell short up until recently was its ability to move large amounts of data. It really faltered when it was like, let's say you gather data, or you're doing some data cleaning maybe. Let's say you get all your devices from your MDM and you have 500 devices and you put them in Monday because you're like, okay, cool, let me just match that to different users in Monday. At that point, it was just it was inconsistent in the data that it was transferring over from board to board and those things. And recently they went through like a whole database overhaul, or at least they made it public. I'm sure they've been working on it for longer than that. And that's been more solid as well, which I think ties into that integration piece of linking, because I think that changes less and less as soon as they start getting the back end really solidified. And their API has been really good in general for quite a long time. So I think they haven't, they went through an overhaul of that a couple of years ago and they haven't changed that so much. So touch wood, it continues like that. But obviously there's always that risk, right? We haven't had to put so much maintenance into things. As much as just getting things connected initially. But once they are connected, they seem to work pretty well.
Nice. Yeah, even for the sort of one-person operation, Jerry's describing being the one-man show, and like you, Dav, one-person operation, I think you can make the case for that too. It's not just about, like in Sam's case, alerting his team to different responsibilities and things that are needed, or having that dashboard be glanceable by everybody to be able to be on the same page. It can also work in a one-person operation because you can share the data with your clients. And if maybe just a few of those larger clients would benefit from seeing that kind of a dashboard, and maybe that makes them a little bit more likely to stay with you over the long term. If you're giving them this kind of information, it might make them really happier with your services. And it also can lead to more efficiency, just even for yourself, to be able to see what needs attention and what the status of everything is at a glance. But I think it's even easier to make the case in a larger operation, even 2-3 people, to share this kind of thing would be really useful. And it's good to hear that it doesn't necessarily require all that much maintenance on an ongoing basis if you just get it set up initially and get it all designed the way you want. So looking at this, like zooming out a little bit, what would be like a starting point for just the, let's say, 1 to 3 person consultancy to just dive in with this overall approach? Would you say, I guess we've been speaking mostly about Monday.com. It sounds like that's the place to design the dashboard and to have the information. And Zapier sounds like a good link. Is that this sort of the number one recommendation, and then plug in whatever ticketing system you use?
Yeah, I mean, if we're zooming out a little bit, I think you got to think about the fundamentals of what you're trying to accomplish, whether it's customer facing or internal, and what you're trying to improve on. I think that's where the ability to look at the project and the different parts, and obviously I'm sure you've all gone through it as well with your organizations, of just figuring out, okay, what are we trying to solve for, and also what are our existing solutions doing well. And I think that's probably what gets forgotten more so, is like, what do we have currently? What dashboards do we have in our current systems? Or what, not just dashboards, but whatever data we want to share, however that is. And what is it doing well? And what am I trying to fix or solve? And I think going through that process, then you end up on tools like Monday. I think there are others out there. I think where this tool falls in line for, to your point, the 1 to 3 man shop is just the fact that it's that affordability, right? Because usually these kind of tools and this ability to make dashboards fairly easily is reserved for enterprise software most of the time. And I think like there are other tools that can do it and they do an aspect of it, but to get all that data consolidated, that's where Monday really shines, I guess, in that terms. And I just want to mention that it has its own built-in integrations, as well as you can integrate it with using Zapier. So you don't have to use Zapier if your tool already has an integration there. So yeah, Monday would be probably a first recommendation. If the point is to, let's say, manage tasks, we actually started moving away from Zendesk, mainly because Zendesk had, depending on the tier you were at, there's 3 or 4 of us that work at the ACN using Zendesk. But we found that at the tier that we were at, they wouldn't give us a lot of data. Like you only had 3 months of data that you could go back on tickets and those kind of things, unless you got their like analytics thing. And so we looked at different ticketing systems, and I actually built a ticketing system in Monday, because you can manage emails in Monday, like incoming emails and things like that. Much like you would expect, like you have an automated email when somebody submits a ticket, and then you reply through that and all that. So we just do all our tickets through there. So I think if you're a small shop, just to get back to your point about your ticketing system and plugging it in, I think you can do a lot of that in there. I think if you want to do that, then you're going to need to be ready to front load a lot of the work manually, as in you got to set it up. Once you have that set up, you can get it to your CRM solution if you want, along with your ticketing system. Our goal is to integrate a lot of that. So we have an onboarding folder that we have for each client. So when we take on a new client, for example, we have the dashboard that's already made, and you can copy the boards and all the links to the boards and those kind of things. So you end up just having to copy and paste it, and you change the data. And then when a ticket comes in, it's tied to the inventory, like their devices that we have in our MDM, along with any history of tickets that they might have had in the past, along with like their organization and email and all that. So ideally, what we're trying to get to is a very centralized location that when a ticket comes in, we know who they work for, their history of tickets, their devices, what's the status of their device, if it's something that's in Watchman, and so forth. And I think it's doable. I think it takes a fair amount of work. I'm hoping to get something out there on my own website that people will be able to use and download to cover that for the 1 to 3 man shop. But yeah, that's still in the works. And I think that takes a lot of front loading. I don't think there's a really good solution at the moment out there that I can think of that would do that well at an affordable price with all your different systems. If that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. It sounds like there's a lot of specific work that needs to be done on a case-by-case basis, not so much a off-the-shelf kind of solution for this. So I guess unless you're starting from scratch today and you just make all the right choices as far as which systems you sign up for that are already all linked and talking to each other, or maybe you have a ticketing system that just does a lot of this stuff built in, or like in my case, Repair Shopper, the sort of promise was that it has all these things integrated. So like you can have everything in one place. It doesn't always come to pass, but yeah, it makes sense that you would need to spend some time up front integrating everything and designing it to look and work and report the way you want. But it's a very interesting project. And Sam was very early to the Monday.com train here. And
at least in our small group, Jill. Let's be real.
Yeah, right.
It's usually Jerry's at the forefront and we're tagging along.
Yeah, I'm way later, but I may be second in line on this one because now with Dav seconding this recommendation of Monday.com and you speaking so highly of it, Sam, as well, I think this might be one of my next projects. And Jerry, you, just to hold myself accountable here, you gave me a New Year's resolution to drop TeamViewer. So that's actually my next project that I need to work on in the very near term.
So
but after
proud
that,
of you, Joe.
Yeah.
It's New Year's 2024, Jerry. That's the resolution.
That's right. Yeah, talk to me in a year. Exactly. It's really interesting talking this over, Dav. I'm excited about the possibilities and inspired to try to better integrate my whatever dashboard system I use, whether I keep it with numbers for now or go to like Monday.com to have this kind of glanceable place to see the status of all my clients and issues and business performance and things like that. Yeah, I hope that other listeners out there are also interested. And I guess they can find you on Slack. And where do you tend to hang out on the Mac Admin Slack?
I go there. First of all, I go into your guys' channel, which is nice. I'm a lurker on the Mac Admin's workspace in general. So I will hang out. I won't say much in there, but you can find me on there and you can DM me if you have any questions for sure. And then otherwise, through my website, by email, LinkedIn. You feel like everything is so open to receiving messages. So my website's DIJconsulting.com. And then along with that, I actually have a YouTube channel, which I'm working on and getting content out there to go along with the whole Monday thing. So if you are looking to get into Monday, hopefully there are some tutorial videos that can also help you on there, which you can find on my website, linked on my website.
Excellent.
And surprisingly, Dav, there is no channel for Monday.com in the Mac admin. So I think we should start one and you should be the administrator of that channel.
I think that's a plan. I think done. Consider it done. I will do that. No, it's been a pleasure to hear your experiences as well through Monday stuff. I think there's a lot to explore there. I don't think it's perfect. I just want to state out there. I know I speak very highly of it. Obviously, I work with it quite a lot, but I have worked with other tools, even like Jira Service Desk when that first came out. So obviously Jira, if you're used to the Atlassian suite, it was mainly meant for developers and following the Kanban style of doing workflows for developers. But then they actually brought out Jira Service Desk, which is quite decent. But like having gone from that to using this, for example, you can just do a lot more, and the integration between different sections has just been great. So that's why I speak so highly of it.
Yeah, I love how accessible it is to even the small operations like ours. And there's a lot of potential there if you can put the time in. And it's great to know you're out there, Dav, with advice for people who may be looking to work on this. And I guess we'll look for both you and Sam in the new Monday.com channel on Slack. Hopefully it'll be there by the time this airs. I don't know if you need to get permission to do that or something, but I'm sure there's a need for it. So that's a great idea. Yeah, it's been really interesting hearing your perspective, Dav, and talking about some different automations. And thanks for joining us on Command Control Power.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. And keep up the good work, guys. It's a pleasure listening to you guys.
Special thanks to the following community members whose strong monthly support has sustained us for all these years. Ryan Gowdy, CoreCompetent.com. Weldon Dodd, Kanji.io. Richard Wingfield, EnvisionDesign.net. Adam Rice, AskAdam.io. Mac Admins Podcast, podcast.macadmins.org. Tim Nyberg, TheMacGuys.com. Michael Thompson, Origin84.com. Matthew Waples, Waples.net. Tom Puls, BoxIT.tech. Jerome Potters, PITPro.nl. Steve Sorbo, MacSOS.biz. Andy Espo, CallAndy.com. And Nate Sinall, WeAreScout.com. Thank you all very much, and thanks to our patrons at every level of support. If you enjoy the show, we really would love your support. And if you already support us and can increase your monthly pledge, we really do find that encouraging. CommandControlPower.com and click support. Thanks very much for listening and for supporting the show.
Jerry does his voices of customers of all kinds.
Am I on the cloud?
Joe spins his deeply detailed yarns all the time.
I have a whole story about this.
Sam is on the road again, phoning in from a hotel.
At least we know where I am.
Half a century combined of Apple expertise right now. Right now. My Mac is slow. Have you tried restarting? Well, the fans won't